Okay, 360 Speeders, we love that you're taking an interest and actively supporting what we do on social media and on YouTube. Hugely appreciated. We would love you, however, to get even more involved. So, as I've mentioned many times over the weeks, please do get into the habit of just hitting that thumbs up on Facebook or Instagram or what else is there, TikTok, or especially on YouTube. Just to hit the thumbs up. To comment as well on YouTube would be really beneficial to us. It helps to push out the 360 Speedway channel into the YouTube stratosphere and bring us to the attention of the famous YouTube algorithm that puts 360 Speedway under the noses of YouTube viewers around the planet. Remember, there's also so many ways that you can get in touch with us through our different social media channels, and of course that dedicated WhatsApp number, which is 0333 772 4046. Right, gents, remarkably, as I say every week, Fans Pulse lap 4 already. So you have voted, we have listened. Let's hit the final discussion topic of episode 17. We've just been talking about the pricing of the sport in the UK. The flip side, of course, is the cost side of the sport, and there seems to be, and has been for some time, an ever-increasing spiral in both sides of that particular financial equation. There's been much talk in years past of trying to get a grip of riders' costs as a means of trying to lower the inherent costs within the sport. So if we can save riders money, the idea would be that cost saving could be passed on to the clubs and potentially even reflected in admission pricing as well. So we're going to have a bit of a chat and consider once again standardisation in Speedway. So guys, as you well know better than I do, Speedway is a pretty specialised form of motorsport. The bikes and the equipment generally don't swap across to other bike disciplines, and in some ways that provides a bit of a strength for Speedway, but in other ways it perhaps makes it, leaves the sport a little bit more vulnerable to the ebbs and flows of any cost. So engine tuners, for example, if the National Union of Engine Tuners in Speedway put their prices up, then automatically the riders feel the pinch and they start to demand that in their contracts, etc. And that then has a knock on to admissions. So a sharp and direct question to open with, Nigel, and I'll ask you this one first of all. Is it time, Nigel, and would it even be remotely beneficial for British Speedway to have another internal look at cost control?
I think some of the riders, obviously we're not talking of your World Championship and your top men. A lot of these riders, they don't need to spend the money, I'm sure, on as much as they do. I hear the younger lads having so many bikes and everything else and a big van. And do they need all that, Derek? Do they need 3 and 4 bikes? I was talking to one lad, a second division rider. He'd got 10 engines. And he says, he ain't making no money. He must be making some money because he's bought 10 engines. Does he? You don't need 10 engines, Derek. You don't need that. Again, as we've said before, they see Ty Woofenden push into Cardiff with 4 mechanics, 3 mechanics, whatever, 3 bikes, loads of wheels, everything else. When you're starting out, you don't need to go to that great expense, do you? I know it is expensive, but do you know, Speedway is also one of the only sports where a very low level you can earn some money from it. A little bit of money. It isn't going to cover your costs, but you do earn a little bit of money back to help towards the costs. No other bike sport you do, your motocross boys, your road racing boys, all it does is cost them fortunes. So Speedway isn't on its own in being expensive by any means. But it is on its own in that you can earn a few quid back to help offset the costs. Yeah, okay, in your early days, the lower leagues, you're not going to cover the costs, but you do earn a few quid back if you've got anything about you to help contribute towards it. No other motorbike sport you'll get paid to do. You won't. And I'll argue with anybody on that one, I'm sure. Motocross, you don't, do you? Road racing, you don't. Any car racing, I don't think you do, at a low level. So it isn't all that out the way. People exaggerate things, I think. And do we need 10 engines? A second division rider?
Yeah.
Okay, he was probably riding in the first division as well. Does he need 10 engines? Does he, hell? He doesn't need 10 engines. You don't do enough meetings. Gone are the days where riders will do 90, 100 meetings a year. Chris Harris probably does, but I'll bet you anything. I bet he hasn't got 10, 11 bikes. I bet he hasn't. Pardon?
He's got 15.
I bet he hasn't, Stuart. I'll bet he hasn't. I don't know. The young lads, they see these superstars, don't they? And I mean superstars, your Bartos Smarslick and your Ty Woofingers and all that lot, all them lads that are well established, who have got big sponsors and everything else helping towards everything and making a lot of money, them lads are. But like everything, you've got to serve an apprenticeship and you cut your cloth according. And when you get going, then you start spending more money, don't you? I don't believe that. People say they can't afford to do Speedway. Well, I think it's a lot of bull, Larrys. I really do. Because the motocross boys get nothing. And it costs them thousands, just the same. Yeah. I know one or two lads that do motocross and they spend a lot of money. No different than Speedway, but they don't get a bean back for it. If they have a good day, they get a little bit of a pop trophy, a little bit of a plastic trophy. Well done, lads. They don't earn any money from it, and they certainly don't get paid to go there.
Yeah, as ever, Nigel, you make some really really interesting points, and I'm particularly taking note of the one that you mentioned, that riders themselves sometimes maybe bring their own. Contribute to their own problems, right? To your point, they need 10 bikes, they need 10 engines, but
it comes down to hunger, Derek. Hunger and how much you want it. That's what it comes down to, I believe. But I'll get shot down by somebody, probably be Stuart anyway.
That's what you're here for, now. That's what you're here for. Andy, I'm going to bring you back in on this because you might have a little bit more insight into current day costs, Andy. So I mentioned in the sort of intro question, is it even worthwhile Speedway trying to have a sort of internal look to reduce costs? So what can riders do that would materially make a difference to them, Andy, in terms of is it less frequent engine tuning? Is it are there particularly expensive parts on Speedway bikes that maybe they could try to save a few £100 here or there? Is that going to make any difference anyway, Andy?
I think riders, are always going to want the best of the best equipment on their bikes. Like, for example, you can buy a throttle for, 30 quid. You can also buy a throttle for 140 quid. And a lot of the youngsters now, they're trying to almost compete with the top guys with having that sort of equipment. And as Nigel says, I don't think that they need it, to be honest. Rather than buying equipment or using equipment for their standard and their ability, they're having the equipment of someone like, trying to compete with Smarslick on the equipment side, and it's just not necessary, and you can go right through the bikers to sort of different components which could be much cheaper.
Stuart, just to bring you in, I won't ask you any fresh questions, Stuart, but just picking up on what Nigel and Andy have been saying. What's your views on even the benefits, the material benefits? Is it even worth trying to eke out some cost savings internal to Speedway?
Do you know what, just to combat what Nigel says, I mean, I don't disagree with you, Nigel, on some of your points, but you mentioned about the motocross boys having, spend thousands and don't get any money back. But in my experience, I've got a lot of friends that are motocross riders and they're reasonably well off, Nigel, you know what I mean? They've got a few quid, they've got a bit of money in the bank and they do it as a bit of fun. But I think you'll agree with me in this one. How many riders have you seen in the past where they've had very difficult upbringings, not a lot of money, and they go and try and buy a Speedway bike? You look at the costs involved with that and the costs involved with motocross. The motocross is more expensive, you get nothing back, but with Speedway it seems to attract a different sort of person.
Stuart, you've just shot yourself in the foot there, Stuart, because you just said earlier on one of the most natural riders what should have gone on to be the best was Joe Screen. Joe Screen didn't have 2 pennies to rub his backside with when he first started Speedway, and look where Joe Screen got to.
But that's a phenomenon, Nigel. That's a one-off. You know, you've got to experience it yourself. You know, motocross riders tend to come from a different background from speedway riders. You know, you've seen it, I've seen it, and I think the money involved with motocross riders is they don't get anything back. You go and buy a motocross bike, what is it now, 3-4 grand? You know, you go and buy a bike.
You won't get one for that, Stuart. You won't get one for that.
5-6 grand. But when we were racing back in the day, I mean, my first bike was a Westlake, and it was a bike rack in the back of the car. It was a tow bar with a bike rack. And
this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying, Stuart. Why do they need the big vans that do 15 miles to gallon? You know, a big bloody great big van. Why do they need that? Yeah, okay, get one later. But you know, that's what I'm saying. They can cut the cost, like Andy said.
But you know, see when you turn up at the Speedway, Nigel, and you're watching your Bartosz Marzliks, your Jason. I mean, back in our day, it was you, Nigel. We're looking at you. You're looking at Kenny McKenna, Shane Bowes, Jason Lyons. They had the big vans. Maybe not yourself, because I know you were too tight being a Yorkshireman. But they had the big vans. They had all the gear. Don't get me wrong. Some of them had no idea, but you wanted to aspire to be that. And some of the riders, when they're that young, Nigel, they think that because they've not got the best of gear, they're not going to progress. But really, they're not got the best ability at that point of their career. But they want to go and buy the Magura clutches or the Magura throttles, the Talon hubs, the fancy spokes, you know, and they want to be the best. So they think having the best.
But Stuart, that's what you said. Andy said earlier on. You need somebody there with you.
100%.
Keeping you on the right track. You don't need, like Andy says, and I don't know, I have no idea. Andy says you can go buy a throttle for 140 quid, you can go and buy one for 30 quid, and they both do exactly the same thing. So why a young kid that's trying to get going, that's got no money, why does he want to buy one at 140 when 30 quid does just the same? That's when they need somebody right behind them, isn't it?
But then you've got the guy that had 10 engines for a first and second division and can't score a point and he doesn't make much money. So, you know, what one do you want? Do you want the guy with 10 engines with plenty of money that can't ride a bike? Or do you want the guy...
No, because he won't be about next week, will he? Because he can't afford to do it.
Aye, but that's my point. So, you know, he's went and spent how much money? But let's be serious, 50 grand, probably. Nigel, let's be serious, 40, 50 grand. You know, the price...
Your man at Glasgow. Your man at Glasgow started this season. He showed off on Facebook 5 brand new bikes sat there.
Right.
You know,
I've seen that.
5 brand new bikes. I don't know. People tell me they're 10 grand a bike now. 50 grand. That lad has got no hunger. Well, he's got no hunger. He hasn't got to fight to get the next pounding to pay for the
100% is not. The hunger's not there, Nigel. But let's say
the other thing, Stuart. The other thing. What again? It's only me. Hey, listen. I drove a tractor and milked cows. That's what I knew about motorbikes.
Absolutely,
Nothing. But I learned how to do my own engines in between a proper good tune-up. But I learned how to look after my engines, strip them down, put new rings in, polish the heads up, do whatever. I learned how to do that to save money.
But you had the facility to do that, Nigel. Your family gave you the facilities of a...
No, they didn't. No, they didn't, Stuart. No, they didn't. Nobody gave me that facility. Nobody.
So when you were working in the farm, driving the tractors, things like that, you had the workshop. What I'm trying to get at is that you had more of an opportunity than your average kid that stays in a terraced house.
No, I didn't, Stuart. No, I didn't.
So where did you do your engines in?
I learnt it in my garage, in my poxy little garage. I learnt it, Stuart. Why can't the kids now learn it? Because
social media. Social media.
Well, they want to go and pay Ashley Holloway and I don't know, I might be doing him a down here, £500 to just service an engine. Why do they need to do that? Why not learn how to do it themselves? And that way they will know what the engine needs during a meeting.
What happened to the engine that was manufactured that wouldn't need would go the full season? Do you remember a couple of years ago?
I was going to mention that, Stuart.
Was it Kelvin Tatum that trialled it? I think, was it? Am I right?
No, Andy? Are you on about the Marcel Gerhard? Was it?
Was it Marcel Gerhard?
Andy's going to tell us here.
Right.
Yeah. Andy. It was Marcel Gerhard. You know, doesn't matter what engine you have, if they're not maintained properly, as in sort of, cleaning out your carbies properly, cleaning out your filters. And I think that's where, when Crabby's on about earlier about doing the apprenticeship, this is where the youngsters really need to take note, because how you maintain your bike, how you look after your bike, how one thing will affect something else. That's really important, and I think that kids nowadays, they haven't really got that in them, because dads are doing the bikes, dads are doing this when they need to be in there themselves doing it all. And as Crabby says there, doing the top end, a top end service on your bike, on your engine. All this should be taught to youngsters so that they can appreciate and see what's going on with the engines, and it'll just fill them with belief and also understanding of what's going on under the bike.
I'll tell you a little story here. Me and Graham Jones, in our early days, we was doing an engine and we was trying to lap some valves in to seal them, and we had this one valve and we was working on it for hour after hour to get it lapped in. Anyhow, we eventually did, but when Graham took it back to his engine tuner, it was bent, wasn't it? That's why we couldn't get it lapped in. But obviously, we didn't know it. You couldn't see it was bent as such, but it was bent. But we got it to work. But you learn from them things, don't you? You learn.
I think
yeah, exactly.
It's just I think what we've been talking, or you guys have been talking about for the last 5 minutes, is just indicative of I think it's just a generational change. I'm not saying it's a positive one.
100%.
I'm not saying it's a positive
100%.
change, but it's a generational change and a mind shift change. And youngsters in all walks of life expect things to be served on a plate to them, and shortcuts, and everything should be easy. Nothing should be difficult and have resistance to it. And I think that's what you guys are identifying, really. And it's crept into Speedway more and more and more.
100%, and I said this for weeks on this, Derek. I think social media now, I mean, when myself, Nigel and Andy were racing, we didn't have pictures on Facebook, we didn't have pictures on Instagram, we didn't go and see how other teams were doing. You picked up a Speedway star, or you had your little small camera where you took photos on it, and that was it. Kids nowadays haven't got that drive and focus with certain things, because they've got Instagram, they've got Facebook, they've got TikTok, what's happening in the other side of the world, and all these things. And I think that is a major part of today's problem.
It takes the mind off the job, doesn't it, Stuart?
100%, aye, it does.
We spend more time on TikTok and whatever else you're going on about there, Stuart, I don't know. They spend more time on there when they shouldn't be spending time on there. They should be spending time learning about the job, learning about the engines.
I remember going to Exeter. I said this before about when I was racing there, and Nigel, myself, he was my teammate at the time, and I'm driving up to the stadium. Just before I get into the street, I turns my music on, I'm going to play the tunes, bim, 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 bim. And as we went into the stadium, Nigel's going, "Here we go, Martin, we've got another one." And he said to me, "If you focus more in racing, you might score more points and sit and listen to Bobby Brown." But it was right, though, because I wasn't focused. I was focused at trying to show off, look good, I wasn't anywhere near the ride that Nigel was, but I wanted to play the boom, 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 the big bass box in the back, because that's what speed riders then did. We had the bass boxes in the back, the subs, and we were all daft, but that's the way it was back then.
Andy, just trying to roll up this conversation that we've had for the last 10 or 15 minutes. Is it a hopeless ambition, Andy Meredith? Is there no hope for, or not enough gain, or cost saving gain within Speedway to closely examine saving money through standardisation? Is that a hopeless ambition, Andy?
I think so, because I think that there's, like I say, everybody wants to have the best, and we're like Speedway riders are a bit like sheep. So when you've got one getting one thing, you want the next person down wants to have the same thing again. So, that's going to lead down from the top. So Smarslick has the best of everything, and it keeps working its way down the channels. So I think it's, I think there's a place for standardisation in it, maybe right down at the very lower leagues, but certainly not through the sport.
Nigel, I don't think there's ever been standardisation, has there, Andy? We can go back to the two-valve days where everybody says they got an engine out the box and out the crate and they rode it. Yeah, and I believe they did. But then you had tuners like Guy Allett, who used to look after Ivans, and Ollie Olsen's, and he used to look after theirs, and he'd always do a little bit different, wouldn't he? But yeah, nothing like it is today, really, is it? But I don't know. There'll never be standardisation, will there? I agree with you.
I think what we're saying, Nigel and Stuart and Andy, is that the genie was taken out of the Speedway bottle many decades ago, right? And there's no stopping it now. There's no stopping the.
Yeah, but Stuart, Derek, did Andy, did Stuart, did we want the same as what? I don't know who was about in our day, Bruce Pennell, Kenny Carter. Did we want the same as what they had? And did we get the same as what they had, or didn't we? I don't know. Did we? You two tell me.
No.
I didn't. No.
You never had the haircut anyway, Nigel, that's for sure.
Well, I can remember Kenny turning up in a big van. Oh, he had a massive big van. Through his dad's garage sponsorship, what he had, but I used to turn up in an old Mark III Cortina with a bike on the back, and lucky if it had a bit of paintwork on it, it were held together by rust.
It's what you did on track, Nigel. That's what truly counted. I didn't
do not on track.
You did eventually, Nigel. Listen, that's it for episode 17. I hope you've enjoyed the discussion. A few interesting topics as ever tonight, and once again I'd like to invite you 360 speedsters, if you have any comments, anything that you heard that you disagreed with or did agree with, anything you expected to go on, Nigel.
Somebody's been asking me this, and can I just ask Andy this? I'll put him right on the spot here. It's not about Butlins, by the way, Andy.
Good job as well.
I thought Butlins was part of the conversation as well.
No, it's not about
Butlins was a long time ago.
Yeah. No, somebody has been asking me this. One or two people have actually. How much input on the track did you have at Bellevue on the days of the Grand Prix? Or was it them telling you telling them? How much input did you have to put in? Am I all right asking that, Derek? Somebody's asking me.
Go on. Yeah, you've asked it now, Nigel. Go on, Andy.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, I had most of the input on the track. Obviously, Phil, the only thing that Phil did ask of me is to make sure that the inside was packed hard, because with the rain that we got forecast, we didn't want the inside to become too dominant, if you like. So that was all he asked. And then during the meeting, the preparation beforehand, that was down to me and the guys, throughout. So yeah, I mean, Phil, when Phil's doing the directing, he's mostly saying how long you got left with the TV, sort of one more lap or two more laps, and that's pretty much it. And Phil's a good guy as well, to be fair. He has a lot on his plate.
Very knowledgeable is Phil. I think you do a cracking job at Bellevue, Andy. Great job.
Thank you. Thanks, mate.
Here.
Thanks, Derek. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. Listen, 360 speeders, we'll call a halt to episode 17, but please be active for us. Please be interactive. Get in touch with us. Share your views and opinions on anything that we've discussed or anything you would like us to discuss. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy your week. Enjoy your speedway most of all. And we look forward to your company again next week. Thank you. Good night.
Yes, good night.
Good night.